Those Days with the Monsters, Part 10. Kirrel woke to a soft, beeping sound. For a moment he lay there happily, feeling as if he were floating. Then, the horrible memory of an empty space where a hand should be came flooding back, and he was glad he hadn't managed to eat anything yet, because it would have come right back up. "Seriously, Smee, I don't know what the hell you expected." That was Doc's voice. Kirrel didn't open his eyes to look. He didn't want to know if the hand was still missing. "He's barely started, and you decide it's a good time to demonstrate prosthetics to him? You're lucky he didn't hit his head on anything. First thing Lex teaches people is how to fall. I think he's got that one down." That was Smee's voice. Kirrel found himself thinking about the colour thing again, and wanting to ask about it. But, at the same time, he didn't want to say anything. Things seemed much nicer when the Cumans thought he was asleep. There was much less panic this way. "I repeat, lucky. One day of training isn't enough to teach anyone to instinctively fall safely. Might be a species biology, but it might just as easily be sheer dumb luck. Do you really want our one Xeno contact to depend on dumb luck?" Doc's voice hissed as he spoke. The force of his whisper buzzed in Kirrel's ears. Is Doc angry? He couldn't even see Doc's movements, but he thought the voice sounded angry. His translator wasn't giving him any helpful feedback, but that was his guess. "Isn't that what sending him to Hook is about? We're supposed to be decreasing the amount of dumb luck we rely on, not increasing it, you utter moron. Isn't it better if he knows now, instead of losing it in the middle of a match when he accidentally decouples it?" Kirrel flinched. That was Alex's voice. She sounded so unbelievably calm when her hand had just disconnected. Cumans were definitely flesh and blood. The captain had bled when the Tizzik sliced him. So how? How had she done it? And how was she not even concerned about the missing limb? Doc took a deep breath and let it out slowly. "You're lucky I'm the one here right now. If it was Sleepy, Smee would be getting a whooping, and you know it." "I won't deny my brother would be better for a whooping, but I don't think it should be Sleepy that gives it. A hand was hard enough. Do we really want to replace a face?" "Ugh, he can't break my face anymore, Lex, you know that. You're the one who made sure he couldn't." "I bet he still could. When I'm done with the new kid, you'll be the one being called Squishy." "Shush." The Doc's voice came from close by Kirrel, and gentle hands moved his arm. "Don't disturb the patient. If I can get this handled while he's still asleep, so much the better." Kirrel didn't move, hoping his frills hadn't gone fuchsia and betrayed the fact he was listening. But when a tiny prick of pain pushed slightly into his arm and then kept going, his eyes opened with a jolt. "Oh look, he's up. Do we have to shush now, Doc?" Smee demanded, with his teeth bared in the Cuman way. "You," Doc sighed, doing something quickly with a little tube and binding it to Kirrel's arm with some kind of tape. "Do whatever you want, just don't agitate him. The last thing I need right now is a re-fainted Squishy." "I'm not Squishy," Kirrel muttered, his frills bright orange. When he looked down at his arm, they flared a brilliant red. "What the—" Some sort of tube was inserted into his arm, and he could see his own blue blood draining into a bag. "What the hell are you doing to me?" he demanded, flailing in alarm. Stop, you'll pull it out." Doc rushed over and held Kirrel's arm as still as he could. "Calm down." "You are stealing my blood. How the hell am I meant to calm down?" Kirrel demanded, attempting to smack Doc with his tail. Unfortunately, since said tail was under the sheets and currently not very strong, all he managed was to make a mess of the hospital bed. "Take a deep breath, hold still, and I'll explain." "I can't explain when you're thrashing like this." Doc was now trying to hold Kirrel's arm still, and still manage the talons on his feet, which had ripped through the sheet in its flailing. "Damn it, Hook, would you help me hold him? Where's Sleepy? He's gonna rip it out." "I told you doing it without asking first was a bad idea," Alex demanded, quickly and neatly pinning Kirrel's shoulders to the bed. Kirrel stopped fighting with a jolt as he realised she had two hands. Two perfectly functional hands. The only difference was the left one put out quite a bit of body heat, and the right one was cold. "Phew. Listen, Kirrel, if you rip that out you'll bleed all over the place, and that'll be hard to patch back up. I know. I've donated before." Alex's cool, steady voice cut through Kirrel's semi-panicked state. "Donated?" Kirrel wasn't sure what was happening, but Alex seemed very calm, and not in the way humans got when they wanted something dead. No, scratch that. She looks annoyed. Is she annoyed at me, or Smee, or Doc? He hoped it wasn't him. No, actually, he hoped it was Doc. Stick a needle in me while I'm asleep, why don't you? I hope she's mad at you. Blood. I've donated blood a lot. Not here, most people on this ship don't need it, but back when I was in the Solar Collective, we needed a lot of my kind of blood. Kirrel felt his frills go an even deeper red, mixed with brown.
What the hell?
He whispered. Alex sighed. Kirrel, what happens when a member of your species loses a limb? Kirrel nodded slowly.
They die. Very quickly, too.
Alex nodded as well, but quickly, and only once. That's probably from blood loss. Now what happens if you lose a limb, but there's blood available to try and replace what's being lost?
You'd probably still die, but slower.
This time it was Doc doing the nodding. That slower gives us time to get in and repair it. We call it blood transfusion. Since Earth is a death world, we really don't think about it as an issue. It's just something we do, another medical procedure. His expression seemed slightly unhappy. I didn't realize it would be so startling for you.
So, you have so many kinds of death that you just borrow blood to hold it off a bit longer?
Kirrel felt as if his stomach was determined to roll over.
How often do you do this?
Well, on this ship the last time we needed it was, maybe about 3 Earth years ago, right? Alex looked to Doc for confirmation. If you mean bashful, that was 2 years and 6 months. Doc's face changed, as if recalling something. Kirrel's translator helpfully informed him that the expression was something called bittersweet. Right, about emptied the blood bank. Alex nodded slowly. I had to put in some serious work to fill it up again.
You have a bank for this stuff?
Kirrel wasn't sure if brown or red was foremost on his frills. It didn't matter, really, but he found himself fixating on it, as if needing something to think about besides draining blood from the living. Yeah, we want to have something on hand, in case something unexpected happens. Smee butted in helpfully. If someone got hurt with the Tizics, we probably would have needed to get into it and use some. Lex is a good blood type for donation. O neg, I think. Oh, pause. Unfortunately, you're the neg, Jason. Yeah, I'm an A, which leaves Dopey out of luck. Poor man has to donate his himself. Kirrel hadn't managed to track that entire conversation.
What? A? O neg? What's...
He felt a hand on his arm and saw Doc checking the tube.
Doc, what are they talking about?
He wasn't sure if it was blood loss or hunger that was leaving him dizzy. Well, it explains what I'm doing with your blood, so here goes. Human immune system recognize us and not us, and go after anything that's not us. So when we give someone blood, we need to be sure their body will accept the blood, and vice versa. Hook here has blood that's pretty easy for people to use. Smee has a different kind of blood. And Dopey? Well, Dopey has B negative blood. So that means Hook can't give him her blood because she's positive, and Smee can't give him his blood because he's A. So Dopey's pretty much out of luck on that front, and donates his own. Which brings me to this. Doc tapped the bag, rapidly filling with Kirrel's blue blood.
Oh.
Kirrel's eyes widened as he considered the implications of this.
Oh.
Of course the human immune system wouldn't accept being put into him. Was that what the captain had meant when he shouted at Alex? Had the captain been worried because there wasn't blood in the bank for Kirrel? And for some godforsaken reason, this idiot decides that while you're passed out is the best time to try and draw some blood. Alex's face was squinched up. Kirrel's translator informed him that she was very, very irritated. He wouldn't want to be Doc right now, but serves you right. Well, serves you a little bit right. He didn't want to be mean, not when Doc had been so friendly. Worst bedside manner ever. Smee broke in, very unhelpfully. Kirrel's head spun. He wasn't sure if it was from the new information, or from the amount of blood that was suddenly no longer in his body. But he let his head fall back onto the pillow with a groan. Right, why don't you pass me the potato, please? Doc requested, doing something with Kirrel's arm and putting some pressure on it.
Potato?
Kirrel asked, his eyes opening quickly. He hadn't realised how hungry he was, and they had one of his favourite tubers just waiting for him. We try to have something to eat after blood donation. I guess it might work a bit differently in your biology, but hopefully not. Doc held out a hand and Kirrel found his mouth full of warm, fluffy, starchy tuber.
Do I get potato every time you take my blood?
He asked, the spines on his frills turning a faint purple. Doc covered his mouth with his hand. Alex and her brother, showing no such restraint, roared with cumin amusement. The purple flush grew. Kirrel had known the question would probably come across as childish, but somehow it still had made its way out. He blamed the dizziness. You can't give more blood for a while, potato or no potato. Alex had her hands on her hips now. Kirrel's eyes moved from one to the other nervously. Which one was detachable? Or were they both detachable? Alex caught his eyes glancing between her hands and bared her teeth. Do you want to see? If you promise not to faint again, I can show you. Kirrel swallowed hard, also swallowing the tuber to his disappointment.
I can't promise.
Fair enough. Don't worry though. No blood. Alex reached out, grabbed her right wrist and twisted. The hand stayed in place as she detached her arm from it. Kirrel tried not to look at the hand. Instead his eyes caught on Alex's arm, which ended in a bright disc of some kind of silvery metal with some ports. See? Just an interface now. Oh, don't get me wrong, there was plenty of blood when it happened, but not anymore. She reached out and put her hand in Kirrel's claw. He stared at it for a moment, uncomprehending, then turned it over and looked inside. All he could see was another metal disc, clearly meant to be a pair with the one on Alex's arm.
Do you feel with it?
He asked softly, not sure if he was allowed to ask that. Alex nodded as Kirrel poked at the disturbingly cumin-like appendage. Yeah, well, sort of. She made a face that his translator didn't recognise. I can feel basic impacts and some finer touch. It's good enough to hold a spoon with anyway. I can't write with it though. I don't have pain receptors in it either. It's heavy and harder than a normal hand, so it's good when I want to hit things. Kirrel hesitated, intending to ask if that was why she'd beaten him, but that seemed in poor sport, and besides, he was pretty sure that wasn't the answer. Instead, handing it back with a wince as his arm stung, he asked,
So, if you have a removable hand and something happened to it, was it cut off, or?
Alex shook her head. She was not baring her teeth anymore. I don't like to talk about that part all that much. Can we change the subject? Tell me about your homeworld. You've heard a lot about humans and Earth. I want to hear about your species and home now. Kirrel hesitated, unsure if that was an appropriate subject when he just carried her detached hand and kicked holes in the sheets, but he was a cultural liaison. What good was a liaison if he didn't do any liaising? Liaisoning? Kirrel wasn't sure how to say it, but that was besides the point. He had a job to do.
Sure, it's not very interesting, but...
He took a shaky breath.
Sure, I can do that.